Hello, it's the evening of July 9th, 2026, and I haven't done a garden walk in a few weeks, so I'm going to do one now. It's kind of overcast weather. We've had really good rain this year. Now we're getting into a hot and dry period, but to kind of show how things are looking here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this front section actually because it doesn't look very good and there's a lot of deer damage up here. No fruit on much of anything to speak of. So you can see the daylilies are at kind of peak flower right now. No peaches, only a few gumi, no Nanking cherries, no quince, no pawpaws, well, there are a few mulberries, but not on most of my trees. Butterfly milkweed is in flower right now, which is beautiful, and so is common milkweed. And the brambles, the wild blackcap raspberries, are one of the few things that has fruit this year. So this Illinois everbearing mulberry has leaves but no fruit, and the other one that I grafted 2 or 3 years ago has had some fruit but no leaves, and the fruit is not ripening. This catalpa here, which is kind of a sacrificial coppice tree, you can see whenever we get heavy winds, it kind of knocks the heavy branches over. They grow really fast and not very strong, and so the wood is soft and kind of snaps off. So some recent grafts, this is Taylor pawpaw on the top central leader. That one, I think that one is called, I think I grafted this one once before a couple of years ago. And this is Davis, grafted again onto the central leader. And as we pan over the wildflower garden here, the Monarda is just starting. There's some kind of coreopsis over there, more butterfly milkweed. The cup plants are just getting devoured by deer. They've acquired a real taste for those in recent years. And I might as well go over here and show this other beautiful rose, because this is probably the nicest one. Color-wise, it's not as vivid as another one I have, but this one is the largest and sort of fullest in flower at the moment. And these make a lot of hips, but the hips aren't that great really. They're very hard and there's not much meat to them, so not as choice for eating as like a rugosa rose or even the invasive Japanese roses. Anise hyssop here, one of my favorites. Beautiful flowers, pollinator magnet, and also really delicious licorice flavored, black licorice flavored leaves and flowers. And over here, did a little persimmon graft in that cage there of Barbara's blush, and I think there's a bud sort of starting to pop. The rugosa roses are about done flowering, and the Monarda is just starting here, so maybe we'll do another video in a week or two and see the full show, but the early Monardas are going. So yeah, we'll kind of breeze through here. The lance leaf coreopsis are still happening, although they don't seem to be as prevalent as they were a few years ago. They maybe are fading back some for some reason. The downy sunflower here some of them are waist high. The deer don't seem to eat these, which is nice. But yeah, it's been a really good rainfall year. Now here we've got dogbane, and check out the dogbane beetles. Beautiful little rainbow colored things. Let's see if we can focus. I always try to point these out to people when they do garden tours, because they're one of the nicer, one of the most beautiful insects around. So here, I did some spraying for poison ivy maybe a couple weeks ago. I got to prune that branch off, that split there. This is a persimmon I grafted there a couple years ago. No fruits on any of my persimmon grafts really. Actually, this one up here might have 1 or 2, but no real crop to speak of. So yeah, the brambles, I've been eating a lot of prime picking black caps, and also the golden fruited ones are really good. And some of the ones that are, growing in new places where they haven't been really, they're quite nice large fruit. Apologies for the noise next door. My aunt has her grandkids over. Have a few things in this propagation bed, but not a whole lot. Gonna kind of speed through here. My caged garden seems to be working well. See if I can just focus on whatever. Hopefully my focus is on. There's a mulberry I grafted in there that the bud seems to be maybe popping a little bit. Here, sorry for the whip around camera, we've got some Hochberg elderberry, sort of a later flowering variety. We've got some wild fox grapes sprawling over this willow. Now this willow is a nice one because the deer don't eat it. Most of my other willows seem to both not be drought tolerant at all and also be favorites of the deer. So the Chinese tune tree is growing back pretty well after totally dying to the ground, and it's got some offshoots here and there. So I'm going to quickly walk over to the blueberry area. Sorry for the mess. And I've mowed some of the garden, but not all of it. Now this Monarda's kind of going off. There's some good brambles there to eat. So over here, I have not mown over here. I've got some blueberries in cages, and I will mow here because I may give a tour or two this year. I have not given any tours yet this year publicly. I've given maybe one to one friend who stopped by. But these blueberries, these are all caged in recent years, and it's kind of a jungle over here because I've not mowed or scythed or anything. But there are a few. Oh, you can't see them in that one. These are some of these are wild blueberries that were transplanted from a friend's house, and so they're small plants, and they're actually, some of the berries are really small. They're not BB size, but they're much smaller than your typical blueberry that you'd get at a blueberry farm or a store. But they're pretty flavorful, you know, they're packed full of flavor. Whew, it is so hot right now. I mean, the temperature is not that bad, but it's about 150% humidity, it feels like. So it's very sticky and gross. So over here, I grafted another pawpaw or two. These two back here were grafted. I'm gonna have to cut this sassafras down to give them more light, so they might fruit in a few years. But those grafts, I need to get permanent tags on those. Hopefully for my next video. I got some more of the tape that you make tags with, the metal tape, and I'm hoping to make a bunch of permanent tags. So here's another graft of Davis onto the central leader of a root sprout. And then over here, I've, for the first time, maybe second time, I've tried grafting some walnuts this year, and hickory and pecan. So this is summer's walnut. There's a bud. Too early to say on the walnuts and hickories. We'll kind of pan around here. This was a former wildflower garden. It's got some pawpaws on the fringes of it, so there's a couple nice pawpaws over here and here. And there's some walnuts. Yeah, there's a mother walnut tree behind me to my left, and so there are baby walnuts everywhere. And so I picked a few on the edge here, even though I don't want to plant any more walnuts deliberately, but working with some of the ones that are already here. So there's at least four or five walnuts around here that I've attempted to graft, and most of them were what you would call a barn door graft. I see some nice bumblebee action on this Monarda here. Monarda is a real attractive plant. There's a clearwing moth, I think, or hummingbird moth maybe. There's a real early kind of goldenrod here. So yeah, if we just kind of sit and observe for a minute, you probably, if you could zoom in, you could see a lot of action. So I'm going to move over through this unmowed area. This pawpaw tree here is from oikos. It's got large wide leaves, and I guess oikos is, but it's got trunk problems. I've got to cut one of these trunks off, because look how bad that looks. And then there's also a terrible crotch angle. And actually, speaking of that, one of the ones that had a bad branch angle over here actually snapped off in a windstorm. So that's going to have to regrow its entire trunk. So there's some kind of sedges here that have really taken over a lot of this wildflower garden. It must be wet enough or somehow favorable enough to these sedges to become dominant there. So this pawpaw was grafted a few years ago, and I've chopped down some of this autumn olive to mulch it with. And there's another recent pawpaw graft over there, and then its mother tree is growing pretty well. Now this one over here had some pawpaws last year, maybe half a dozen. This one I think I tried grafting and it did not take. Anyway, so this is sort of the woodland shade area, the catalpa coppice attempt here. I should have probably cut down every other one of these. They're a little too close and too shaded probably to ever amount to anything, but it's sort of an experiment. Here's some of this moth mullein. Mullen? I don't know, I say mullen, like Rodney Mullen. That's finishing up its flowering and making little seed capsules. My service berries were a total wash this year. This one doesn't even have any branches really down low, but all the fruit was bad. It got really severe rust problems and didn't amount to anything. So this path again has not been mowed, but you can see it's growing up pretty thick. And then this, there's the wild goose plum, and there's some bramble here, the snowbank, blackberry, white blackberry. So this this hazelnut is like breaking its branches off with these big crops this year. Now it kind of took a year off last year, but it looks like this year it's making up for it. So one branch I touched earlier did snap off. This little pawpaw here I grafted a couple years ago. That might be IXL or something. Need permanent tags, but it's kind of hard to walk through here. That's an apple that I grafted a couple years ago. I need to thin out the canopy to give some of these target trees more light. You know, some of this stuff, sassafras, autumn olive, it's just sort of filler. It's nice to have it as mulch material, but it's not something I want to keep long term, at least in this area. Beautiful crown vetch in flower, bees like that too. That's kind of sprawling over dewberries, which are sprawling over the what do you call that, brush pile. Sorry, I think my brain is not working because it's too warm. There's a nice autumn olive grafted with gumi, 2 years of growth. Do I want to walk through this jungle over here? Maybe not. I need to kind of clear that path more. That's if I were to walk through there, I'd be showing you a bunch of chestnuts interplanted with black locust and how those are growing, but they're growing pretty well. Chestnuts have a few leaf problems this year. I need to get some serious cages on. There's a few things in here that were grafted 3 or 4 years ago, and they've never amounted to anything because the deer just keep hammering them. Seaberry had maybe half a dozen or 10 fruits on it last year. I think it's a pollination issue. Oh, look, there's a fruit. So maybe this is female. There's a very few fruits on here. That's cool. That might be a female, and maybe this poor little thing here might be my only remaining male. At one time I had about over 20 seaberries planted, and I basically got one good one, or one decent one, and then that little whatever that is, and then there might be the remnants of one over here too that's also similarly small, but I think most of these are just root suckers of this big one. Okay, so I did mow through here, kind of staggered my mowing, and so we'll walk down this path. Now this wildflower garden, back up a second, this has looked much better in previous years. It's kind of gotten overrun with big blue stem grasses, and also there are sumacs and black locust moving in on it. So in the back here in the canopy, you can see black locust and then chestnuts, and then in some cases there are mulberries and things as we get over toward the edge here. Here's a problem. This chestnut tree was rubbing against this cage too much, so I need to either put a guard on here. Actually, I put the stick here to stop it from blowing over so readily, and that should help. But it was kind of just whipping around earlier and getting thrashed and damaging the bark. So that would be an invitation for chestnut blight and other problems. So over here, this big box elder tree, pretty much the whole top is fallen out. It's got sort of one branch that hangs over the neighbor's driveway still, but there's not much left of it. Now here, gumi grafted onto autumn olive. That one's doing okay, but this is my poor tattered Illinois everbearing mulberry with no leaves on it. So it did grow a couple leaves. I guess the groundhog hasn't been here in a couple days maybe. And I tried to pick off most of the young fruits that it was trying to make, but I think it's still getting damaged, and I have to set the groundhog trap over here and relocate somebody. So here, Chestnutville, again, different chestnut area. This is my big timber chestnut looks pretty good. Some leaf problems. The flowers are done. It still smells a little ballsy over here in the chestnut area. The flowers are still kind of going on. There's a little aronia that the deer, they keep that at knee height. It's been there for 10 years at least. Here's wild lettuce. Now, this wild lettuce is actually, the tops of it, the tender parts are edible. They're palatable. Not great. They're kind of bitter, but it is something you could throw some of them into a salad type thing. I got some poison ivy here. I need to spray that with that vinegar. 30% vinegar seemed, on a bright sunny day where it's hot, does a pretty good job of burning up the poison ivy leaves. So these so-called Seguin chestnuts, some major blight and mushrooms on that one. This one doesn't look too bad, but a lot of kind of pan into the canopy here. Got some leaf issues. Only 2 of these things I think have ever had any nuts out of 5 that I originally planted, and they were never big producers. Excuse me. So here we've got a persimmon grafted. I think that might be Osage, or either that one or that one is Osage. I got to make my labels. Red fleshed apple I grafted a couple years ago, and again I've been laying down, breaking down sumac that's growing up in my paths and everything, and laying that down as mulch material and around my target crops. And that works pretty well. It's nice to have all this extra greenery and biomass around. So did a few grafts of just a single bud because the cyans weren't very good or thick. So this is a technique of just barn door grafting, Tom Wall's technique from Iowa. This persimmon needs a proper cage. This persimmon is growing well. Now this is a different type of graft here. I took 3 or 4 pieces, just single buds of active summer growth of my friend Allison's beautiful old pecan tree. It's probably 50 something years old. And I tried putting a few buds of that from this year's growth because that's an old tree. And here's Eder hybrid hickory again. That's an old tree that does not have anything that resembles cyan wood to grab in the wintertime. It only grows about 1 inch a year in most directions. So I was able to get some of the most vigorous growth from some of the sunnier branches that were down low and take a couple of buds off. And so there's one here. This one actually shows it better because what you do is you take the leaf and the petiole and the bud, and you kind of cut a slit into the bark, lay it in kind of like a barn door graft. Then you leave the leaf attached and put it in a plastic bag, and it's pretty weird. You think that would become a greenhouse and just burn it all up, but apparently people have some success with that. So I don't know if my timing is right or if my technique was very good, but anyway, that's an experiment. So that might be one way I can reproduce that cool historic pecan tree that's, according to the Michigan Nut Growers Group, that's one of the best pecans ever, seen in this latitude. Here's Tollgate pawpaw, just grafted a few days, maybe within the last week. There's some more pawpaws over here I grafted. There's Sweet Virginia in that little shadow of the catalpa tree here. There's Davis again on a little root sprout of this guy here. And this one is not grafted. It's the tallest one over here. This has had flowers, but no fruit yet. I've got witch hazel here. And again, more mulch. So you'll see this idea repeated. And over here, got a bunch of this annoying grass. I think it's called a deer tongue grass. This stuff here, really don't like it. Kind of looks interesting, but it makes tons of flammable looking material once it dries down. And it looks like, nice tinderbox for a wildfire. So before it went to flower, I chopped all that shit down. The whole ground cover here was basically that stuff. And so I also thinned out the canopy a bit to allow more light in. This is a seedling walnut, and there's a little white oak or something that the squirrels planted or some rodents planted. And I did the same thing over here. This was a variegated seedling of walnut, and again opened up the canopy, kind of cut out a hole to allow light in because it was I think too shaded for that species to really be happy. Excuse me. So time will tell. I've got ground nut, Apios americana, or Apios, yeah, americana, vining around in the understory in places. here and there, so that's kind of cool. There's a good graft of Gumian to autumn olive here. This one, again, no fruit this year, bummer, but it's got a nice looking trunk, and I've been managing it to try to keep it from, you know, resprouting. But the trunk, there's the grafting behind my fingers, and that's, you know, 1.5 inch diameter there. I need to take the tree wrap off this poor walnut here. Walnuts, again, no fruit yet. Some of these have been here for 14 years now. Here's a Japanese heart nut or walnut or something, seedling probably. That may be a candidate for grafting. I love that I'm getting moss as a ground cover in some places where I mow often enough. I'd be happy to have moss, although it doesn't probably cycle much nutrients. That's a red-fleshed apple grafted a few years ago. This Asian pear, I think it's Asian pear, or some kind of a pear, maybe Ayer's pear. That's growing really well. Here's a chestnut. Part of this was grafted, but I can't say whether that's still alive. Probably not. This 9-bark is doing okay. I've had some other 9-barks that have already kind of died off. Pretty heavy crop on this eastern red cedar. I've been debating cutting down some of my cedars because of the fungal exchange between the cedars and the apple family plants. This autumn olive looks like about half dead. And I may still do that. I'm especially in proximity to the apples and things and the service berries. This service berry has had a rough time over the years. It's barely still alive. Most of it's dead. That one gets rust pretty badly. But yeah, these cedars have some pretty sizable fruit this year. Maybe that's something related to the moisture we've had. Chestnut doing well now that it's caged. I do have some butterfly milkweed back here. It's kind of hiding. I think the deer don't hammer that one as much as they do regular milkweed. But you see, it's dewberry season, so these are really variable. Some of them are great, some of them are terrible, but they're like a small blackberry, and it pays to try the different ones. The harvesting them is a pain because the plants are armed with these little microscopic thorns that break off in your fingers and are hard to get out. But whoa, sour. Some of them are really good, like I say, but most of them are not. Ugh. This catalpa's got a beautiful form, pretty straight, nice straight trunk. I have to learn to differentiate between the southern and the northern catalpas. That one, you can see the top snapped off. Some ragged growth. Chestnuts that are deer maintained at knee height. Hazelnut bushes kind of slept for about a decade, and then last couple of years they've done pretty well. I think last year I took a year off with the cropping. This year there's some. This one doesn't seem to have many. Japanese walnut there. More sumacs creeping out into the oak savanna here, but I'm kind of keeping that in check. I don't want them to go into the persimmon area too much. As they do, I'll just chop and drop them as mulch, which is what I've been doing. Here's another walnut that has not ever fruited, although at that size I would think maybe sooner or later. The growth of wild plums, American plums, probably no fruit this year. Beautiful common milkweed. Now deer eat this, so I used to have a bigger population of this out here, but it's been shrunk because of deer browsing. Now this oak here, I think this is by Munders or something. This is an oikos oak. Again, once the tags are out here, that'll be nice. I can tell at a glance. Stupid ass. Anyway, I think it's by Munders. It has some acorns forming, I thought. Oh yeah, little cute ones. Teeny tiny. These might actually take 2 years. I know some acorns take 2 years to form on the tree, so maybe we'll see what happens. Got a few wild asparagus that the deer didn't get. And this false indigo, I've been chopping and dropping that a lot, especially over by the persimmon area and where I've got sort of crop trees growing. This oak, this is I think just a standard bur oak maybe with this really cool bark. Don't see much in the way of acorns here. Nice thick leathery leaves and really cool branches. Look at the chunky kind of plates on that bark are really cool. Love it. A little bit of a slow grower. Some of these oaks have done better than others. Some of them had tree tube problems in the beginning, and they had to kind of regrow after a few years. That could be what accounts for it, but it's probably just different, genetics adapted better or worse to the conditions here. Serviceberry with a bunch of nasty fruit that the birds won't even touch. Another oak there. Yeah, so the oaks look pretty good. I'd like to see them in 50 years. I won't be around then, but it'd be cool to see what they turn into if they survive, the climate disasters and windstorms and fires and everything. Another beautiful oak, nice straight trunk on that one. That one may not have regrown. This one kind of grew crooked a bit. It's growing toward the south, but it's not terrible. Oh, there's a tick on me. Usually kill those. I don't want to let that go back into the wild. I'll see if I can squish it with my nail. Again, autumn olive used as mulch around young chestnuts. Some of my chestnuts got proper cages and some haven't. Here's some hazelnuts that the deer kept going after, so I've piled some brush around them. But honey locust, storm damaged honey locust, dropped a big branch near my yard. Brought that over here, and also some just limbs and whatever. Another nice young adolescent oak there. A few new cages over here. No apples on this tree back here. That's a double graft. My other apples up front do have some fruit. Don't know what it'll amount to, but they do have some. Now in the hedgerow here that's regrowing, you'll see there's a couple of, that's the native rose. There's another one here. Got this native clover. I think they call this rabbit's foot clover. I don't think it's, it doesn't get much bigger than this. This is about ankle height, but it's kind of a neat thing. It seems to be adapted to these dry land conditions. So just a little moment to appreciate the different colors on the native rose. And the deer do eat this. This was planted probably at least a decade ago, I want to say, and hasn't gotten too big. In this hedgerow too, I need to get more cages on some of that stuff. Now we've got a few sumacs and things creeping in there. I've got to keep an eye on that. Don't want things to get too tall. But some of the hazelnuts are doing really well. Looks like a good crop on that one again this year, so maybe they're kind of alternate bearing. See if I can crush this tick. Okay. Hopefully I got him. Asshole. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of do a quick tour through the persimmons here. Grafted some. In some cases I cut all the foliage off. In other cases I kind of left some nurse branches. Also depended a bit on what I thought the chances of survival were. So this one, it's been a couple weeks on some of these. I have to look at the calendar and tell you, it might have been almost 2.5 weeks on some. So I'm pleased to see that some of them are definitely pushing buds and are taking, or appear to be taking. Now this nice one here, this is Proc. I keep cutting branches off or thinning them back because it's I don't want too much top growth to snap off our graft union right there. Steady as she goes. With this one, this is DEC Wannabe number 3. Got some nice buds, 3 nice buds pushing on that. Anyway, you'll see there's a nice little explosion of leaves at the top of that one over there. I'm not going to show you all of them, but just show that some are growing. And sorry for the train noise. Before, some of these grow at very steep angles. You have to kind of push the things out. Now before these buds were definitely popping on my grafts, I was rubbing off all the, this one is pretty brutal. There's really almost nothing left of the original growth, just a couple leaves here. But they say that with persimmons, you really want to manage the undergrowth to stop them from overtaking your graft. Now, this one is not showing much of anything, but this was a 2025 scion, so I don't expect that to necessarily work. It looked like it could maybe work. It was kind of green, but you're asking a lot of nature in that case. So let's see, a couple different types of grafts I did. This was just a single bud because this is a tiny piece of scion wood, and that one is growing. That's Hershey Fruit Dump. Oh, that's cool. Hopefully that will, actually some of these single bud grafts were some of the first to show signs of life. That's interesting. Maybe just less tissue to heal over. Another thing. This one's got a couple buds here. This is DEC Donald Compton Goliath. That's awesome. And then there's sort of a double feature. You've got two growing next to each other. So if this one's taking, I may cut that one down, or maybe I'll just leave it for a couple years and see what happens. This one's not really showing any obvious signs yet. That is L93A. That's last year's signwood, so that no surprise there. Hershey Fruit Dump. Again, this was kind of a skinny little wimpy scion, so maybe a tentative growth there. I should have cut, maybe I'll cut that off and just leave one bud to give it more of a fighting chance. But again, here I took pretty much all the growth off this understock. So a little iffy. This one maybe doesn't look like much is going on with that, if anything. This one's got a nice little burst, and this is a small tree. This is Moneymaker, Donald Compton Moneymaker. Awesome. So that one over there, don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to show you every single one, but just to show that there's some life in some of these, which is very encouraging to me. So yeah, if the main persimmons, the ones that have borne fruit before, whatever fruit they would have is not really showing yet. It'd be pretty small. This was a female, but I did some thinning on this and then took a big branch off. You can see there's a new branch growing out there, and I'll let that grow to kind of fill that space in. But yeah, some of these I just left like one little nurse branch, and so I'm letting some of the buds, now that I'm seeing some life coming in, I will let some of the lower buds grow. This one's got kind of a crooked trunk. You can see it's been pruned at different times. But I don't want to, this is a nice little one with two nice buds growing. There's my bird perch next to it. This is 145. That is a cherry layman or Compton, one or the other. And this is nice little growth on this one, A118 Elmo. That's cool. That's graft from a few years ago. I've got to protect and label. This is Donald Compton Wannabe number 3. Again, two little buds happening. So I don't want deer to come chomp those off. So I'm gonna get some cages sooner rather than later. This is Dollywood. Awesome. I've got a Barber's Blush that's growing elsewhere too. And then this one here, this is I think Deer Candy or Deer Magnet? Deer Candy. Sorry if I'm pointing the camera into the sun. But I do have a bud showing some life up there, so that's awesome. This is grafted about 7 feet off the ground. And again, rub off some buds that are too close. I kind of left some half-assed nurse branches because you don't want a lollipop shaped tree. So now once that looks like it's taking, I will let some of these lower branches grow out and be wider, because that'll help buffer the wind when the wind invariably blows 80 miles an hour and snaps things off. So it's a bit of a learning experience for me as I'm grafting and trying to learn what works best for an uncertain climate future. I don't want 6 feet of vigorous growth on a new graft because it's too tender, it'll snap off. And anyway, trying to strike that balance. So I've got some more mowing and thinning to do. Up here, you can see the sumacs have grown into the trail, into the sort of road here. And I'm going to, by hand, either pull those out with my hands, or I've got a brush blade for a scythe. I got a new scythe that's a brush scythe. So I'll either try that, but it's kind of fine work because I've got all this downy sunflower growing in between, and I don't want to cut this stuff down. So I think I'll just do it by hand with my loppers, or just yank them out by hand, because some of them are tender enough that you can just yank them. So that way, there's a demarcated line here between what is the road and what is the forest garden. And here's more of that deer tongue grass stuff. So anyway, sorry for the hot, sweaty, breathless tour. Here's a little native rose trying to get established among the deer, dead autumn olive. That's how things are looking here in early July. We're going to go into a hot streak now. It's going to be about 10 days with no rain and 90-degree temperatures. So, fingers crossed. We had a lot of rain, man. This month so far we've had inches and inches of rain. So I cannot complain. That's something it's normally The limiting factor here at this garden is rainfall. So at least this year is different that way so far, but the summer is not even half over. So, you know, watch will be in a total drought for the rest of the summer. But in any case, thankful for the rain that we have had early on, and hope everyone's gardens are growing well. There was a nice wild rose here, my original champion wild rose, and now I'm not even seeing it on this side of the hedgerow. It should be somewhere in here. Oh, there's a bit of it there. So the hazelnut's kind of overtaken it on this side. Probably can see it better from the other side. But anyway, that was a nice plant that I've propagated many off of in the past. My grapes, not doing great. Caged some of them. My original champion Vigoro grape has some disease problem, and its deer also eat it. So not looking great. But anyway, hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for watching, and talk to you later. Bye.